Yesterday, I uploaded a short, no spoilers review of how I felt about Star Wars: The Last Jedi onto Instagram, and I figured today I'd do a spoiler review. It's been out a couple of days, so here are my thoughts. Just a couple of things beforehand. I'm going to be looking up a lot. I'm at work, so I'm just paying attention to see if anyone comes in, and I might call the movie The Last Night a couple of times. They both came out this year, and I really had high hopes for Last Night, and it was really bad, but still in there. So if I say The Last Night, I mean The Last Jedi, unless I'm specifically referencing a Transformers film, which I may do at this point. First thing I have to say, I had not planned on going to this movie, and I definitely hadn't planned on going to the premiere. I actually went, somebody bought a ticket against my will to go see it. I'm really happy they did, because I actually really did enjoy it, but I hadn't planned on going. And I think that's part of the reason I liked it as much as I did. I've been out of Star Wars for a while. I'm not a Star Wars fan anymore. The prequels, I tried really hard when I was younger to like them, and it put a bad taste in my mouth trying to like them and them being bad. And I know that's the popular, unpopular opinion, but that's how I feel about it. That being said, it was really good. I do have quite a few complaints about it, but ultimately I think the film set a new bar. Not just for this trilogy, obviously, but for Star Wars in general. It did a lot of things that I think are in line with the integrity of the original trilogy. One of my bigger complaints that I did cover in the no spoilers review was the humor. A lot of the humor in it was fine. There were good, funny moments, but some of them were what I like to call Seth Rogen humor, because I don't like Seth Rogen. I don't like the stuff that like him and the kid from Superbad and all them. I don't like that sort of audience commentary humor where the character is saying something that's more in line with something an audience member would or could or should be saying. And I don't think that's a good. It's infected a lot of movies. They did it in Jurassic World 1. The guy wearing the Jurassic Park t-shirt making commentary about the park, like that original park was legit. Like, no, I mean, you're just talking about the movie. That was an audience member in that scene. More importantly, right at the beginning of The Last Jedi, when we finally see Luke, bearing in mind that I'm not a fan, so I wasn't waiting to hear what he had to say. But if I had been a fan, I would have been. And it would have ticked me off that the first thing they have him do is just toss the lightsaber haphazardly over his shoulder. And I'm fine with conveying that he's done with this. But it was just, I mean, that's a big betrayal for the people that waited 2 years to finally hear or see him actually do something on screen. It was just like, it was kind of a punch in the gut even for somebody who wasn't waiting. So I can't imagine what a legit fan would feel. I do like the way that they dealt with Luke, though. I thought having him be the master that was out of it, we've seen that before, but also still having him really learn, still learning from Yoda, and still, because he never was a fully trained Jedi, so he still had a lot to learn, and even if he had been, times change, and his character and the way they portrayed him reflected that. I absolutely loved Kylo Ren in this movie. He was such a drip in the last movie. They opened making fun of him right off the bat. They wouldn't have done that with Darth Vader, and I think they were trying to kind of play up the whole he's sort of a Darth Vader fanboy thing, which doesn't make for a good villain, and I don't know if that's what they were going for. This movie took him, and actually made him a character that I'm invested in. They made him dynamic, unlike Darth Vader for the most of the original series, and especially the Emperor. They just did a wonderful job of engaging me with his character way more than they did with Rey in either film. Snoke was obviously one of the biggest complaints about the last film, and I find it hard to believe that they had intended to kill him in this movie, but then again, maybe they did because they just made him so generic in the last one. I feel like audience backlash at just the terribleness of the concept of that character and the execution of that character led them to kill him in pretty much the best way possible. I really like that whole scene. That whole throne room thing with him is really incredible. The way I view Sith is I see them as kind of like Predacons. If you're not a fan of Beast Wars, maybe Decepticons is a little bit better, but the Predacons, they're just constantly betraying each other, and the idea behind their leadership is if you can't have people under you that will try to betray you and still prevent them from doing it, prevent them from exceeding, then you don't deserve to be in power. And I just see Sith as sort of that just constant betrayal and shifting of leadership and whatnot. And that scene really had that feel to it way more than the end of Return of the Jedi, which obviously was going for a different feel, but at the same time, still just loved it, loved it, loved it. Speaking of Snoke's death, the visual interpretation of what they did, that was some really great filmmaking. They used, somebody loved that scene. Somebody thought of that. Somebody put a lot of passion and care into it, and really thought about it. And it was very well done for such a short, quick thing. You know, and maybe it was possible that they planned on Kylo being the main villain for the for this trilogy. But I find it hard to believe after the effort they put in to make him look good in this film that was the original plan. But, you know, I'm glad they went with the direction they went, because it's so much more Star Wars to do something unique rather than follow its own formula. And while this movie was a lot like Empire Strikes Back, and the last one was obviously a cut and paste remake of New Hope, it had its own tone, it had its own feel, it had its own identity. And that's really what we're looking for, right? We're looking for a Star Wars film that isn't bad, that has its own identity, that has something to say. And that was one of the things that was really great about this film, was that it chose to say, it had a couple of different messages. One of them was about failure and how important that is, and that even the intelligent, super powerful Jedi can still learn from failure and don't have to be afraid of it. There was also a message of right and wrong, and how even, you know, not just on the bad guy side, but on the good guy side, there can be differences of ideals, and one person can look like a bad guy, like the new leader of the rebellion at the time when Leia was knocked out. You know, she was looking like a bad guy, and I wasn't sure until it ultimately revealed what her motives were, or what the truth was, whether or not she was an Imperial spy or not. I was starting to think that, and I think that's important. It's, again, I'll go back to Beast Wars. That's one of those things where characters can have different ideas of what is right and wrong, and even the good guys can conflict and work against each other. And, you know, it shows that it can happen to anybody. It's not just a bad guy thing. And this movie did take the effort to blur the line. Rogue One did it a little bit more, but Rogue One had a little bit more leeway because it was going to, you know, spoilers, it was going to kill off all the characters. And so you didn't have to like him as much. There wasn't as much of a risk. If you made a character unlikable, he was going to be dead by the end of the movie anyway. So, A, he wasn't going to be a problem. He wasn't going to be in the series anymore. And B, he was going to be more likable because he was dead. On that note about good guys having a differing ideal, Poe was completely wrong. I really like that they gave him some character development in this film, that we actually learned something about him as a person. He wasn't just the, you know, most photogenic guy in the world, in the universe, the most photogenic star pilot in the universe. But we actually got to see, you know, how he operates as a human being. And what we found out was that he will completely screw up your rebellion. He got almost everyone killed, didn't he? On those ships, if it hadn't been for his plan. And, you know, my fiance said it was also Rose and Finn. No, they were under him. He was in a leadership position. Even if he got demoted below them, which I don't think he did, he was still an authority figure to them. He was still higher up in the ranks, one way or another, either logistically or emotionally to them. And it was his fault. He got those people killed. I kind of like that. It does mean that, you know, Poe, they needed a new Han Solo, and they needed to do it different, and they did. So props to that. And they made him likable while still having him get a bunch of people killed. I don't know if I'm the only person who's getting a little bit tired of cinematic universes. There's a scene in the middle with the horse ear animal things where there's a whole escape, and I'm like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? By the end of the film, you realize, because of the kid with the broom, that scene is entirely there to establish that kid. They needed to go to a ground level, base level suffering to introduce this kid. And he's going to have his own movie, I'm certain. I don't know if there's anything factual on it. I haven't looked up anything, so you guys might know more than I do on that. But that kid's going to have his own movie, and that irritates the hell out of me, because we don't, you know, is Kerplunk going to get his own movie too? Like, why do I know his name? I don't need to know the guy who fed Rey on Jakku. I don't need to know his name, but I do, so. I like that they're leaning more towards the gray Jedi when it comes down to the light and the dark sides of the Force, and even Yoda's like, yeah, Jedi kind of sucked. You're like, you know, we didn't do a great job. Yeah, Yoda. So what's the point of having a Force ghost if you're basically just alive again. Like, I'm watching that scene and I'm like, yeah, I mean, he probably did develop that, but if he keeps growing and learning after he's dead, it kind of takes the piss out of death, right? Like, and it also takes away the whole, what do you call it? The guidance element, because if he's just basically alive but glowing, like he wouldn't even see through anymore, and I think that was intentional. And then he got way more powerful after he died. Like, he's able to summon lightning right now. Like, I thought it was a big thing that he couldn't shoot lightning before, and now he can just create storms. And, like, what is the point of characters dying? I mean, we become Dragon Ball Z when they just perpetually come back. And I know that, like, not everyone can do that, and I was really happy to see Yoda again like that. For me, as a former big fan of the series, Yoda was my favorite character, so seeing him come back and not act like the dreary, just gray blah that he was in the prequels and actually have some personality again, that was great. Finn was definitely extremely, in the movie. The whole love thing that was shoehorned in at the end, I was just like, with Rose, I was like, I didn't see it coming, and my fiance's like, oh, I totally saw it coming from the first scene they met, and I was like, I guess I don't like love stories in movies. I don't think unless the movie is specifically about a romance that they enhance it, and Han and Leia's was unique because of the way Han was in Empire. It was dynamic, but for the most part, love stories are just so painfully unnecessarily shoehorned into everything. They don't need to be everywhere. They don't, and I have a feeling that there's going to be a Rey and Poe thing, and I just don't care, okay? I don't care who ends up with who. It doesn't enhance this space opera to know, that Rey ends up with Poe or whatever. The movie definitely had a huge, big climax. The main one I consider to be, and I think a lot of people agree with me, the one in the throne room after Snoke is dead. They're fighting over the lightsaber in the air and it blows up, and I think it's the same time that the pseudo-rebel leader, that she does the hyperdrive thing through Snoke's ship, and at the same time Finn and Rose are about to be executed, and that all comes down into one moment, and I'm like, I'm just assuming that this is the climax and we're getting ready to wrap up the film, which was awesome. Like, it was perfect. And that lightsaber fight with the Red Guards, like, everything leading up to it was really good. And then the movie continued on for another half hour and 45 minutes. And I liked what was there, but I feel like in terms of the film, it did detract from the importance of what had happened on the bridge. And I know that, they wanted to do a lot, and I don't think the movie was overburdened with plot. I don't think it needed to be divided up into a couple of films, like maybe Dark Knight, where Harvey Dent probably needed his own movie once we moved on from the Joker at the end. Have Batman leave Joker hanging upside down and go off, and there's the Harvey Dent cliffhanger, and he's out there. I don't think it needed anything like that, but it definitely went on. It was, and it wasn't like the end of Return of the King, where you're just like, Jesus, when is this movie going to end? But I do feel like it detracted away from the big climax where everything was happening, and I'm actually under the mindset that they probably didn't anticipate that climax being as big as it was, but everything started happening, and they went with it knowing full well that it was going to kind of overshadow what happened later, and then get overshadowed by what happened later, and did it anyway because of how good it was, and ultimately I am happy about that. But, there's that little issue where it seems less important because the movie goes on for so long after it. Luke's Force ghost that he projected, I kind of called it. Like, he shows up in the cave with shorter, different hair, and it's a different color, it's younger. I'm like, this is the version that, Ben saw. This is when he last saw Luke Skywalker, and then he's holding the same lightsaber that blew up in the previous climax. And I was like, I pretty much was like, I don't think he's actually there. He survived those explosions. The shoulder thing was a little stupid. I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't make Luke a douchebag, but, they did. So I don't know if everyone saw that coming. Me and my buddy were both like, yeah, like, that was obvious, right? But good. I liked it. And I was also like, if you found a way in the cave and didn't tell them how to leave while trying to help them escape, that's pretty dick move. So, but they did do the ghost thing, and I thought that was worth it. And I also liked that was the end of Luke's story. Once, you see the two sons there, that was a nice wrap up from when you originally saw him to the final time we're going to see him. I mean, at least alive. We're probably going to see him as a Force ghost, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Han as a Force ghost. Not necessarily because he was a Jedi, but it feels like just about everybody is able to use the Force right now. And I know that's not true, but it's starting to feel that way. Leia using the Force to pull back in the ship, I was like, okay, she's dead, and with Carrie Fisher passing, it's like this, this is the way they're going to do it, and she pulled herself in, and I don't have a problem with that, and I don't have a problem with that in compared with the fact that Carrie Fisher also passed away, and this character is going to go away at some point. It felt weird, and I don't think I'm the only one who felt that way. It's another one of those Force power things in the movie where it's like, are they taking the Force too far, or are they just taking it to a new, exciting place? And keeping up the pace so that people stay interested in children specifically, because that's what these movies are for. And I know that maybe she would have frozen out there. I don't know. It seemed a little weird visually. It looked weird. In concept, it seems weird. So I don't know. I don't know how I felt about that. I know they kept her in because they had a lot more to do with her in that film, and it would have been extensive reshoots to complete the movie without her being in the rest of the scenes. My assumption is that they either have some of 9 shot with her already, or that they're going to take some of the scenes from this movie that were going to be in it and going to put it in 9 so that they can take her out in that film. And if they do, this is kind of what I was hoping. I was hoping that they would kill off each of the 3 in each film, and so far they're keeping up pace with that. And I think that's nice and poetic for the characters that I grew up with, that a lot of people grew up with, and it's a good ending for each of them. Each of them gets their own movie to die, as morbid as that is. Definitely the best opening scene to a Star Wars film I've seen since Revenge of the Sith, and I want to say better. It wasn't as long-winded. It didn't have the little buzz droids, and it was nowhere near the scale. That was the thing that was really cool. Is it didn't have the scale at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith and that epic opening shot, but it still had an epic opening shot, even with so few ships, the pan in. And I don't usually go for 3D, but my buddy, he bought me the 3D IMAX ticket, and I don't know if that's all they had on opening night, but it looked awesome. It looked really good, so that was exciting. And for them to do well, and sometimes, it just proves that if you scale things back, they can be a lot better, a lot more focused. And in terms of that, Starkiller Base blew up 5 planets we didn't know in the previous film, and now we've got a Dreadnought at the beginning and Snoke's ship, which each were way more threatening in terms of, stylistically and for the audience than Starkiller Base ever was. And I want to say either of the Death Stars, they were much more imposing, and the whole just constantly being chased. I like that. It had that Empire feel, obviously, because Han and Leia are just running from place to place in the Falcon and Empire, but in this one, it also had its own unique identity that just made it really good. Captain Phasma was still there. Did she die? Do I care? I'm sorry they wasted that really good actress on her, but she's not, don't try and make a Boba Fett character. Just, make the characters as good as you want. Don't try and make them fit a template. And if they're good, they're good. And if they're not, they're not. I mean, Snoke wasn't, so they killed him off. And Phasma wasn't, so they, I guess, killed her off. Going back to the humor, they can do good humor. I didn't like the part where they're all shooting at Luke and the guy's like, "Did you get him?" Like, that sounds like something the asshole next to me would say after that. So I don't want to hear that. But I did like when Kylo gave an order and the guy, I don't know if he wasn't listening, he pushed him into the wall, and the guy right in front of him was like, "Right away, sir." Like, that's the guy. That's funny, and I want that man working for me. I like how this film had one really epic, super lightsaber battle. I like the sort of Mexican standoff they had of sorts with Snoke, where there were 3 opposing forces, Kylo Ren, Snoke, and Rey, and they kill Snoke, so they've got to team up for a moment to take out the red guys, and then they're against each other. I love 3-way battles like that, and I love when it's done so well, and I love more intensely that I didn't see it coming. And I also like that the movie decided to have a second lightsaber battle between a Force Ghost and a guy that didn't know that the other guy was a Force Ghost. And it was really... And it's probably why we had the epic climactic battle that we did earlier, because it needed to make up for the fact that we weren't going to get a lightsaber fight later. There was no final lightsaber battle in this movie, and that's... Again, this movie's doing its own thing for the most part. It's still kind of following the template, but it wanted to have its own identity, and it has its own identity. And that's, again, it set the bar. I really liked Rogue One. I really liked it as a prequel. I had a few issues with it, like I do, but I think this one was way better, way more engaging, and yeah, I think this is going to be the thing. We're probably going to not enjoy the next film as much. They pretty much did everything unless Kylo's lying about Rey's parents. We've done all the big things. I think the next movie is just going to be wrapping it up. So don't expect as much out of the next one. I'm not, but I kind of walked into this one the way I walked into Dark of the Moon after Revenge of the Fallen, like, wow, this is gonna suck, and it didn't. So, you know, I didn't mean for this review to go on this long, so I'm gonna wrap it up real quick. Just there are three moments now for me for lightsabers that I think are the defining moments of lightsaber fights in Star Wars. It's the Darth Maul one, obviously, doesn't get much more epic than that. The Darth Vader thing at the end of Rogue One, which is something that I'd literally dreamt of for years. I wanted him to do that exact same thing at the Jedi Temple with Jedi. So when that happened in theaters, like the black screen, the lightsaber, the breathing, all of that, like that was all in my head. And then I saw it on screen. I was like, no way we are doing this. So that moment. And then, yeah, again, I'm going to go back to the throne room thing. The betrayal and the lightsaber fight with the Red Guards, just beyond what I was expecting. I was blown away. I enjoyed this movie a heck of a lot more because of how much I didn't enjoy Force Awakens. I don't usually gush over movies. I don't usually review movies, and I decided to do it because this one was that good. It had a couple of messages, the differences of right and wrong, bad guys working against each other as much as good guys, the importance of failure. And I haven't had a message in a movie like that, in a nerd film like that, I think since Dark Knight, and it was really, I really enjoyed that. Nobody's really decided to say anything up until now, and I want a film to say something, and this one did. It had great action. It had character development for characters that weren't enjoyable last time. It got rid of some of the ones that weren't enjoyable from last time, that weren't going anywhere, like Snoke. It told us that Snoke was a Force user and he was a really good one, but even as powerful as he is, he still got taken down by his own hubris, and he got tricked. The movie had way more epic scenes than I care to count, and way fewer problems with it than I'm willing to count against it. So it was really good. It gets my seal of approval, and that's rare. I haven't seen a movie this good in a long time. And that really, it kind of got the juices flowing again. It got me feeling good. It wanted me to do this review. So that's why I'm putting this out here again. I do apologize. It's so long. I might do some more in the future if I feel bothered about it. But yeah, Star Wars: The Last Jedi, really good. You're only watching this if you've already seen it, so these are just some of my opinions on it. Until next time,